Welcome to All Clear Firefighter Health and Wellness. I'm Travis. Today we're going to talk about don't blow the most important part of a conversation. So today we're going to talk about some leadership tricks and tips that will help us maximize the first 2 to 5 minutes of an important conversation. And we'll learn how that what we say can break trust, can tear down morale, and ultimately impact people's willingness to come talk to you. So let's do it. Now, we often hear that as firefighters, seconds matter on scene. All of us have heard that. But let's take it a step further. In the office, those first few minutes might matter even more. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, our initial reactions to an important conversation, maybe your firefighter brings something to you that's heavy, our first comments make a difference. Think about it this way. Firefighters often struggle when it comes to heavy matters, things that they maybe consider risky to share. Maybe it's a mental health struggle. Maybe it's a mistake they've made. Maybe they're in conflict with another member of the crew. Maybe it's medical concerns. It could be burnout. Could even be family stress, maybe marital problems. They will bring that to people they trust. And if they want to come and talk to you about it, how do you react? Well, your reaction in the first 2 minutes will determine whether they keep talking, whether they shut down, whether they never trust you and bring anything to you again, or it can even affect your reputation as a chief officer. It'll show that your words carry more weight than you realize. So here's a problem. Here's a common mistake that a lot of us make when it comes to having difficult conversations. Sometimes we overreact. We might say things like, "Didn't you want to tell me about this earlier? This is a huge problem. You can't be hiding this." Maybe as a leader, we minimize things. Maybe we say things like, "I'm sure it's nothing. We'll figure it out." How about jumping to solutions? Not conclusions, but jumping to solutions. We try fixing instead of listening. Now, all you need to do is this. Maybe we give advice before we really hear the problem. Do we take the information we're getting as personal or defensive? Maybe we're like, "Are you saying I didn't support you?" Don't become reactive immediately. Listen. And also, one of the worst things we can do is being distracted. Every one of us has a cell phone that we look at constantly. Maybe we're looking at the computer, our radio, our watch, whatever the case is. When we do that, it genuinely shows lack of interest in the people that are talking to us. Remember, the behaviors that we just talked about shut people down, even if we do them unintentionally. Now, what ideally would the first few minutes of a difficult conversation look like? Well, there's a few things we can do. The first thing we can do is center ourselves. Before we speak, take one breath. Set your tone, be calm, be steady, be present. But the most important thing, take a breath before you respond to what somebody tells you. Also, it's important that we acknowledge how they're feeling and then also acknowledge that we are listening. We can use very simple terms and very simple statements like, "I'm listening. I'm glad you came to me. Let's take a minute and let's talk this through." Just those simple words can be very supportive and open a firefighter up to talk to us. Now, something else important, listen. It's very easy for us to not listen. The way we do this is by letting our person finish talking. Now, after they're finished with their statement, it might be a long one. Maybe it's something that's really weighing on them. Whenever they get done, If you need to know more information, ask clarifying, non-judgmental questions. For example, well, when did this happen? How long has this been going on? These are things you can ask that are non-judgmental, but it helps you collect information in coming up with a solution. Also, it's important to manage the moment. Don't make promises you can't keep. And as we talked about before, don't pass judgment. Somebody might really be struggling with something, and we don't want to come off as judgmental. And here is another very important one. Keep your voice and your words even and careful. What does that mean? When we speak, don't raise your voice. Speak clear and stop and think about what you're saying before you just shoot your mouth off, because sometimes you can say something that you can't take back. And we really want to have people trust us. We also need to hold the space. Our job is not to solve a problem in the first 2 minutes. It's to keep our people talking to us. We want to maintain an open lines of communication. Now let's look at what we could consider a real example. Imagine you have one of your firefighters come to you. Maybe it's in your office, maybe it's in the bay, could be. Either way, and they admit, boss, I made a mistake. I did this and I really shouldn't have, whatever the mistake is. And it could be pretty serious. Well, how you react to what they just told you will give you two potential outcomes. The first one, if you overreact, that firefighter is going to shut down, and in the future, he's more likely to hide problems from you to avoid conflict. It makes your job harder. Now, the second option, you can be calm. You can be present and you can be focused. When we do this, it's more likely that the firefighter will open up to us. Now, what's the outcome that's positive? In the future, if things do come up, they'll be more likely to come to you if they make mistakes. Safety would improve, and more importantly, the trust that he has in you as a leader will deepen. Remember, different outcomes start with just those first 2 minutes of conversation. Now, the first part of any tough conversation is not about solutions. It's about the relationship that you have with that person that he has with you as an officer. It's about safety, it's about trust, and it's about presence. A calm officer sets the tone for the entire crew. If we can control the chaos on a fire ground, we can definitely control the first 2 minutes of a conversation in our office. So, I challenge you to practice this simple habit. Before you speak, take one breath. When someone comes to tell you something, even if you're hot and mad about it, take a breath, one full breath before you speak. Your reaction may be the reason that someone decides to keep talking or the reason they shut down and never bring anything else to you again. Now, remember, we as officers have a very important obligation, and that's to take care of the people who take care of the public. So the reactions that we have in the first 2 minutes of a conversation ultimately can drive how we have relationships with our crew. We thank you again for listening to All Clear. And as we always say here on All Clear, light your fire within.